In a press conference last week, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said, quote, "Darkening your face regardless of the context of the circumstances is always unacceptable because of the racist history of blackface." You think? Who's he talking to? It must have been himself, because at this point there's no one else in North America that needs to be told that. But silver lining is that right now Justin Trudeau is the favorite to become the next governor of Virginia.
France is investing 150 million euros into keeping its remaining historic cafes open. It's part of the French president's campaign to make France smug again.
They never stopped being smug. The Coast Guard intercepted a narco sub in the eastern Pacific Ocean carrying 12,000 tons of cocaine valued at $156,000. The Coast Guard became suspicious after watching the submarine sail up and down the West Coast 5 times, erratically turning back and forth and incessantly talking about how much better widespread panic sounds on vinyl. Also, I highly recommend the narco sub at Jersey Mike's, especially if you're planning on rearranging your furniture at 3 in the morning.
Ooh.
Wow. Did you do that as a joke? Wow.
Well, the whole point is you read it fast.
Mike Pence used an 8-vehicle motorcade while visiting a small Michigan island where cars are banned. He needed the vehicle motorcade because for security reasons after someone told him that mosquitoes on the island can turn you gay.
An increasing number of House Democrats support impeachment hearings of Donald Trump over allegations he pressured Ukraine's president to investigate Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Earlier today, Biden said that if President Trump doesn't comply with Congress's request for information, he'll be forced to support impeachment. And we all know who supports Joe Biden supporting impeachment: President Trump.
Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross fell asleep during President Trump's speech to the UN General Assembly. In related news, President Trump gave the greatest speech of his career, according to Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross.
And finally, one that'll go over real well in this room. 16-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg spoke to the United Nations General Assembly yesterday, blaming world leaders for stealing her childhood. More so than whatever environmentalist organizations are propping up her cause and putting her picture out there and opening her up to ridicule by having to speak to the United States General Assembly. The Trump Report starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome to the Trump Report. It's the whole gang. So excited. I'm here, Christian Bladt, with apparently the newly engaged Chelsea Galicia.
Oh my God.
I thought it was old news, but apparently it's still new news. So my apologies. It's still very much new news.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
We're all very excited for you.
Thank you.
We're even more excited that we also have Tamra Brown and Scott Moore here on the
Yes.
panel. Well, you were equally excited.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
yeah.
So there's so many things we can start with today. But I think
We can start with that last thing you just said.
Well, we don't need to talk about that first. We'll get to it. But this is we have to talk about the most important news of the day. Scott, where's the impeachment clock right now?
The one
it's been at 11:59 for a long time.
Yeah.
But
I put it back to 11:58 a couple months ago.
Did.
So now
That's
it's back
right.
up to 11:59.
Wait, but did we ever clarify
right.
what the clock is exactly?
I think that the clock is counting down actual impeachment, not
Yes.
hearings. So I think
Yes.
it's probably 11:59,
Yes.
but it's not at 12 o'clock until
No.
the hearings are concluded one way or the other. And then, thank you
Until
for that,
he's-
by the way. And if the hearings are unsuccessful, whether they get blocked by the Senate or maybe they don't pass the House, whatever, then it turns the impeachment clock to that old VCR
Blinking.
12 o'clock
Yes,
where
where
it
it's
just
blinking.
blinks 12 o'clock and you can't actually change the time.
Yes.
So I think that's where we are right now.
We are. And it was only the impeachment part, not like we talked about the actual removal from the Senate, because that was going to be more unlikely to begin with. It was, is he physically going to be impeached by the House?
But this one is so big that there might be Republican support for it. I mean, I know, but at this point, every day has been almost every day, some perhaps possibly impeachable event. So now that there is one that's so clear, it's so similar to the other ones that a lot of people are like, I don't really know, maybe.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But if this had been the first thing, or if this had been the thing that came out in the Mueller report, then everybody would be, oh, okay, well this is exactly it, threatening another country from withholding something that we had authorized to give in exchange for dirt on a political opponent. Is that not collusion? If that had been Hillary.
But Let me ask you, Tamra. This, according to President Trump, he's happy to release the transcripts, and it was a beautiful conversation. So I don't see why we're even still talking about it. You have to
I'm
understand.
pretty stumped as to
yeah.
because Trump's MO is to deny when anything, won't release his tax returns, anything that it seems like he could be in violation of something, he denies it and won't comply. But the fact that I cannot imagine what is going to happen tomorrow. The fact that he's willing to release the transcripts unredacted, and if that is the case, and we're getting, do you guys all think we're getting an unredacted transcript tomorrow?
I don't trust the transcript.
I don't trust it at all either. I'm like, how do you know it's not manipulated?
And by the way,
it's horrible to say that.
I would say this about any president, any official that is responding with releasing of transcripts. I'd actually like to hear the audio. Let's get that so that we
Right.
can make sure that maybe it's on the up
Exactly.
and up.
That's more
Well, let's
important
get the
to you.
video so we can see those wink, wink,
no,
nudge, nudge.
because the transcript. Of course, you can doctor audio,
Sure.
but you feel like you're going to get a more accurate representation
But we
of the
don't know
conversation.
that there is audio.
Right, no, we don't know. But that's what I'm saying.
To be fair, they're not legally required to keep audio or to create an audio.
Right. That was only Richard
it
Nixon.
was to say it worked out so well for Nixon. I don't know why everybody doesn't do it.
Exactly.
And then, to that point, Scott, do you think that these transcripts have 17 minutes of blank pages? Just like, nothing happened here. I don't know. Guess they both fell asleep.
Blank.
I think they were watching golf, and they're
Or
like,
have a little
hang
thing
on.
in there intentionally left blank.
Like standardized tests. Yeah, this page.
Intentionally
Instead,
left
there's
blank.
just like moments where there's like thumb, like tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
And then in parentheses, the report writes, not quite the clock, but more like thumbs on a.
keyboard.
Yeah.
I think we'll know
phone.
that the transcript has been doctored if it makes Trump seem like he has a vocabulary larger than 20 words.
Oh, that's
Fair
point.
If the other end of the conversation is extremely complimentary, then it's fake. There's pleasantries, and
In
then
fact,
there's.
I cannot wait to get home and write what I think Trump's version of the transcript is going to say.
I wonder. We don't usually do this, but maybe we should do a little homework assignment where we each before we do this tonight. You don't have to, just maybe a paragraph or so. What you think the conversation's like, and we will take a look next week, and we'll see who's
how
closest.
close it is.
Yeah, to the.
it's going to start with like, "Hi, Vladimir. Oh, wait, this isn't Russia. This is Ukraine. Right? You guys are next to them, right?"
Yeah, I thought this was a call with the boss. My apologies. So let us know in the chat what you think is in there.
Mr. Trump, it is such a pleasure to speak with you. You're such an impressive and handsome man who has such a astounding reputation of business and.
That's what it's going to
The
say.
pleasure's all mine. I always thought you got a bad rap against Bullwinkle. So I want to know what everybody else thinks right there. And yes, a tweet from President Trump on the big screen here, thanks to Ryan in the booth. Now the fake news media said, wait, by the way, that's just the media. Like, that's what you think the whole media is. You don't have to be specific like that. You could think about how many tweets how many characters he could have saved. Now the fake news media says, quote, "I pressured the Ukrainian president at least 8 times during my telephone call." Who do they think he is? Stormy Daniels? This supposedly comes from a so-called whistleblower who they say doesn't even have a first-hand account of what was said. And then it continues. But so he's gotten out in front of it. So I think the eagerness with which this was turned over, I think that there's, of course, a possibility of doctoring of transcripts. But I think any pressure that was applied was perhaps not directly from Trump to the Ukrainian president. I feel like he has other people who handle things like that.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know, like Jared Kushner went over and was like, "Oh, it's a really nice looking card. It'd really be a shame if something happened to it. No, I've just got a bat here. No, don't worry about it." If they're just other forms of intimidation, like we see
By
in
the
movies.
intimidating Jared Kushner. I'm shaking in my boots.
I mean, what Ukrainian wouldn't be scared of Jared Kushner? Let's be honest about that.
But the whole, pressure doesn't have to be any like literal gun to the head type deal, and the Trump is not very good at subtlety, but there is, implicit.
Wait, what would make you say that? What from, and I'm talking about before he was president, what about his what would make you think that President Trump is not a master of subtlety?
You know what? I was actually.
I don't even know how to.
What were you going to say?
The only subtle thing that he has ever done is, and not to jump topics, we can stay on this.
Actually, this is pretty good.
But that tweet about Greta Thunberg, that was like the sarcastic.
Yes, sarcastic.
I was like, who wrote that?
I know.
He does not have the ability
He's not smart enough to do
he's
that,
smart
right?
enough
We'll talk about that in a moment.
little-
But you're right. That was actually surprisingly
Yes.
subtle. And you're right. It's like he's got a team that, like any good comedian.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Chelsea. What were you going to say?
I have no
there?
idea.
Whole
at
writing
this
team.
point.
That's all right.
Happens a lot.
But it's all right. It's only like really a 45-minute show. So if we forget what we're saying,
It'll come back
sometime.
around.
Yeah, it'll all come back around. So I think that does the happenings in the House surprise you? Just the way that it started to catch on. I'll ask you first, Chelsea. The fact that I guess we have 3/4 of Democrats. Does that surprise you favorably, or did you think that maybe more of them would be on board by this point? Almost 7:30 Eastern time tonight. Did you think that all the Democrats would be on board at this point?
Well, I know that there are some who are, in those states where they have to appear to be a little bit more Trump empathetic. So I get that there's going to be some people who are slow to join the party, but I was actually surprised that Nancy Pelosi came out this quickly with it. Like I saw yesterday that she was asking around how people felt about it, and for her today to come out and make the announcement for the inquiry, I was pretty surprised about that. But it does make it two things about it. Her coming out this quickly means this is a big deal, or it should show people it's a big deal, but also her being so reluctant to come out with an impeachment inquiry at any of the other possible times before makes it also appear, I think, to most reasonable people that, Nikes, this might be actually something that is deserving of this level of scrutiny. And isn't just like, one more time that they're trying to go after him. Like, no, there's actually something very much to this. I mean, even without the transcripts, and I was hearing an interview on the way over here, we got to wait to see what the transcripts say. We already have out of his own mouth what he said that he did. And even if...
You mean apart from having a beautiful conversation?
Right,
that
when he
is out
said,
of his own mouth.
I didn't place any pressure on him. Well, actually, I did place pressure on him about the Joe Biden thing, which is the very exact thing that is most wrong with it. And the hilarious part is he talked about, I don't want to give Ukraine any money that's going to go towards corruption. It's so funny, I can't even laugh.
Well, why would you spend corruption money abroad when you can spend corruption money at home? No, I think that's probably sound
He's like,
corruption.
keep America first.
Right,
make
exactly.
America
Thank
first.
you. That's like taking our jobs and sending them
keep
overseas.
the corruption here.
Let's
Don't
keep it. Yeah,
import it.
thank
It's
you.
in keeping with
Export
his
it.
speech to the General Assembly, saying every wise leader looks out basically only for their country.
own self.
Nationalism versus globalism.
Right, and I actually want to say to him, like, look around. It's not actually going that well. The fact that we trampled on so many other countries for so long is kind of biting us in the butt right now. It's not like you have to be the president of the whole world, but if we were to all take into consideration, is there a possible win-win? Is there a way that we can get ahead without destroying or killing people in other parts of the country? Maybe we'd be better off. I don't know. That might be very controversial.
Well, case in point was the whole Iran and Saudi Arabia issue, is that the usual allies were not coming to back us up because we basically walked away from the Iran deal that they still said we should be in. And that was the clearest thing right there, which is the reason why it's been a lot harder for him to have any kind of response to this, because there's nobody else that's really willing to back us up like in the past we would. So
it is antiquated thinking that any one person, any one country, anything could or should go it alone. It just doesn't work that way. It defies, I think, like the laws of like science and the universe, that we are so much more interconnected than people want to think. I don't want to get way into sounding like Marianne Williamson here before we're even talking about her. Aren't you glad she's not going to be in the next?
No, I miss her.
I don't know. I'm sad.
You know I miss her.
I'm sad.
Yeah, but Tulsi Gabbard's in the next one.
Yes.
That surprises
Which
me.
we talked about, though. We
Did
said
she have someone killed?
No, because
how did she get into this?
Well, we said because of the way the setup was that people that didn't make it in the September one would be able to get the October one because of the polls and the time period. So there were going to be some people that had a chance to make it.
your favorite De Blasio.
I can't believe De Blasio.
Christian,
What a
sorry
quitter.
about that.
What a quitter.
But it's
just because he's been polling at 0.0 and I think it went up to 0.001 at one point. how disappointing is Bill de Blasio? I mean, not anything else in his career. Not to police in New York. No. How disappointing is it that he's not still running for president?
I know, right? What are we going to do now?
But I wanted to circle back with you, Scott, because this involves someone that you keep close tabs on Twitter. Before the transcripts, the Senate apparently voted unanimously to release the full whistleblower complaint, and there's, of course, someone who could stand in the way of that if he so chose.
By the way, I wish we had another word for whistleblower. I feel like that it's something about that sort of like...
Now, is it because you think of like a referee with a whistle, or is it the stereotypical girl walks by, someone whistles at them?
First of all, that's the only term they're using for this person. So when you're trying to read up on every piece of information that has come out, it just gets too redundant, but also it just gives it sort of a silly, like something that should be taken seriously. It gives it sort of this, I feel like it like
if Trump had named the person, it's like a crooked something or a sleepy something.
It just sounds like a silly
Weasley whistleblower. It would definitely be the alliteration.
But anyway,
your friend and mine,
of course.
Mitch McConnell, did not block this, and did that surprise me?
Well, it did surprise me, but it also goes back to what Chelsea was saying earlier about Nancy Pelosi, because as frustrating as it's been to allow Trump seemingly to get away with things again after again and again and again, she knows how to read the political room. She also knows what the Republicans are going to be looking at, and like she's always said, she wants more Republican support. So the fact that he didn't even stand in the way of this kind of lends me to think that she realizes now that the tables are sort of turning here, and that there are more Republicans that might be more willing to vote now because they're also getting fed up with having to continue to defend this person. So I think that part of that by him, I was surprised by that, but I also realized there must have been something that she realized now to be able to jump on so quickly after all these other things that he's done that have been frankly impeachable offenses, to now all of a sudden stand up for this, because she must have known now that there is some Republican support there and more Democratic support.
Although the immediate response from the House Minority Leader made it sound like exactly... like just completely blaming Democrats. We're just trying to govern. We're just trying to run a country. But these Democrats just keep finding another thing and then another thing.
Well, that's what Mitch McConnell basically said in his statement too. It was like, if these Democrats would actually focus on governing in the past 3 years instead of,
God.
So that's
basically, if
these Democrats would put some things on my desk that I could sign,
exactly.
Maybe we'd actually get something done. Tamra, I wanted to ask you, but do you think that Mitch McConnell didn't stand in the way because he knows that as this goes along, he's going to stand in the way probably like 15, 20 more times?
Right. So he's just resting?
He's like, this is the time. He's like, this is the thing I'm going to give on because I'm not going to do anything else.
Right.
I was just
he's like a boxer that's throwing the first round because he knows he's a late. He pulls out in the late.
Yeah, he's good. His cut man was like, take a couple of punches.
Yeah.
Now, he definitely has an evil ulterior motive there, but I think from her, that was the end she needed to feel that she could now kind of move forward to be able to look into this inquiry because of that, too.
Let us know in the chat if you have a better term for whistleblower, but I wanted to play a fun game I wasn't planning on playing until right now. Who does anyone think that the whistleblower is? I'll go first, Kellyanne Conway. Because I think that she's actually completely in league with her husband, and he's kind of been blowing it for her. Like, she feels exactly the way he does, and it's like, you're really blowing my cover.
She has been quiet on Twitter today. I'm surprised. I was expecting...
I don't know.
I was waiting for her to...
Just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Ivanka.
By the way, yours makes more sense than mine does. That would surprise me. Tamara, do you have any?
I think it's a name that we've never heard of.
Mark Phelps?
Actually,
Mark Phelps has come back, yes.
I think we know it's a guy, right?
Do we know?
I thought
Whistleblower is a masculine term.
That's right. It's true. It's a great point.
No, but somehow I think that's all we know about the person. Is that, although that...
that's
could have been more.
That's so heteronormative of you, Chelsea. That's so unlike you. Why are you not so inclusionary?
In a way, I hope it's a guy because then he'll
Don
be taken
Jr.
more seriously.
He's trying to get
Don Jr. Yeah, no, I think Don Jr. wouldn't be taken so seriously. Yeah. I think if it came out as it was Don Jr.
No relation to him, for
Sean
sure.
Spicer. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey,
he wasn't around July 25th.
I really think with Tamara that it's going to be someone we don't know, someone that's civil servant.
It's somebody in the intelligence community,
yeah.
which is not any of the people that we
Right,
guess.
it's not like we knew who Edward Snowden was before before he whistleblew.
Oh wait, when did this conversation take place?
July 25th.
What if the who
Scaramucci? That would be
no,
great.
no. But the previous what's his name? The
Bolton.
white Bolton.
Bolton?
Yeah, Bolton.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody who's resigned. That would make
that would
sense.
be
John Bolton would definitely make sense.
Yeah.
Look, he's already got a book deal.
I know,
so
right?
what's going to help?
I'm putting my money on Bolton
that's a
right
good
now.
That's a
I
really
keep
good
wanting
one.
to say Michael Bolton, not John Bolton.
Would you like
I'll-
the official
I'll-
vote?
I could-
Look,
I'll
you're
say
gonna,
Michael
you can go the dark horse vote for Michael Bolton.
I will say Michael Bolton.
I always just want to call him Mark Twain because of that mustache. He's good.
Oh my God.
Well, all right. So see, no, that
That
was
one
fun.
makes sense.
That could be a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But you're right. He has an axe to grind, so he could be one that would.
Speaking of axes to grind in the chat, M. Brewer says, the truth will come out. Trump is the most corrupt politician in America's history and is the most immoral human alive, and the dementia or Alzheimer's isn't helping. Are you talking about Trump or Biden? But what I will say,
Christian.
So there's nothing that you've seen from Joe Biden
That would make
speaking
him the
about
most
that-
corrupt
No,
politician.
dementia or Alzheimer's.
I agree with all of that that they
No.
just said, but he's also the luckiest SOB
luckiest,
in the
yes.
history of the world.
Oh yeah,
Best Teflon. I can say that he's the best
I'm
Teflon.
actually
in
annoyed
the-
at all the people who are claiming that Trump has got cognitive decline. Even Anthony Scaramucci, that seems to be like his out.
we call him the mooch on this show. By the way.
Yes, so apologies. So the mooch is like, but he's mentally declining. No, he's not mentally declining.
Right.
This is who he always was, even when you backed him.
Weren't we-
So now that you're
Right.
saying he's declining, is you're out.
Weren't we talking about this before, or was that somewhere else where I heard the same thing, where it's like he's been the same the whole time, he's not changed, and that's what I've said too.
I'm
like,
really annoyed
You
at the
can't
fact-
use that as an excuse.
Scott, are you cheating on us with other shows? You're like, was that here or
Was that
some
here?
other show that I did?
Yes,
I
other
don't
show
even
that I
know.
do, you know? Yeah.
Well, I
do
think
so many
that you're
shows,
right
it's
that the whatever the cognitive ability of Trump is now.
It was on the Dancing with the Stars panel. He was talking
Yes.
about it.
So that makes sense. I think it's on the level for where it's been at least the last few years. But there was a clip that I didn't think to send to Ryan, but of him speaking at the General Assembly, and he's like sort of like hunched over. He's reading very succinctly from a teleprompter. He's so bored, and people are like, "Oh my God, he's losing it." I'm like, no, he's just not interested in what he's talking about. He just feels like he needs to. I think that in a lot of ways he's
Because
kind
he
of
doesn't
checked
get
out.
to, he checks out if he doesn't get to have those moments where he steps back and like accepts the applause from the people behind him holding the signs that say "Women for Trump." Like when he's not amongst that crowd, he gets bored.
Right, which is why he's done these rallies forever. He never stopped after the election. He just kept doing them because that's the only way.
I mean,
that's what he enjoys is the
would-
showman.
They're
Would
his
you
drug.
stop
It's
if
like
you had
this
this many people
hit.
screaming your name and holding up signs that "We love Scott"? I mean, why wouldn't you, go back into another arena like that?
I think I would get old.
Well, let's have it happen. You know what? I'll ask you after your wedding when everybody's paying attention to you, and you're like, and then the next day it's like, Chelsea, whatever. We don't need to talk to her anymore.
And then I'm going to be like, no, I need another.
You need another wedding.
Another wedding.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
No.
Haven't you ever seen Friends? That's exactly what happened to Monica.
I think Christian misses being a groomzilla with how much he
Groomzilla.
misses those days.
I could not have been more checked out at that wedding.
Oh my God.
My wife was like, "Do you want to look at the flowers?" I'm like, "Nope." I went anyway, but I was very upfront about it. I didn't want to. I was like, "What do you think? What do you think the centerpieces should be? Whatever you want. These are the right answers." I hired a band. That's what I did. And no, it wasn't Nickelback. If anybody in the chat wanted to try and be funny. All right. So President Trump was at the United Nations yesterday. And of course, when everyone was speaking about climate change, he was there to talk about religious freedom, which is clearly very important to Donald Trump. I mean, I think that as well as we know him, he has a very strong spiritual upbringing.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, what Sunday don't we see pictures of him at church?
Or at least Kanye's whatever.
Oh, Sunday
service.
services. I don't think he would be there. But although Kanye's a friend,
Right.
But so here's the thing: Donald Trump would appear on stage at Kanye's Sunday services, but he would not be in the crowd. I think I think that wouldn't go well for him. But Kanye would be the only person happy to see him there. If I'm just gonna guess, I'm just generalizing. Do you think that? What do you think he cares less about, Tamra? Religion?
Or
the
Tiffany.
climate. Oh, okay, that's a good third vote.
That's a good third one,
Yeah,
yes.
so religion, the climate, or Tiffany. So if you could do an F, Mary, kill on all those. No, if you rank
kill,
those three.
kill
yeah,
on all of those
everything.
as far as Trump is
but
concerned.
where would you rank them in terms of importance for him? Do you think he cares more about Tiffany than the climate?
What was the first one?
Religion.
Oh, religion.
Yeah.
I think he believes in the Church of Donald Trump, so I would say he that's the highest.
Well, because of the voters too. I would say he knows those voters are.
So yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
think
from-
in his heart, the only false idol he worships is Donald J. Trump. But for political purposes, he knows that he has to act like this is really important to him, and he doesn't act very hard, I mean, I don't think.
And then the fact that Tiffany was present at the UN General Assembly, I'd say that she is at least factored in at least as far as his staff is concerned. We should have her here. So, and then climate at the bottom.
Yeah, but I think she just got tickets on StubHub. I don't think she's actually invited.
How'd she get those great seats next to her half siblings then?
Can I
have
ask
money.
a serious question about this religious thing? I'd really
Okay,
like to
you
hear
can
what
ask
say.
a serious question. Just remember what show you're on. But go ahead and
Okay.
ask.
But yes, you will answer it with some
well,
joke,
I got
which
nothing.
may or may not be funny.
Probably not.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
If
likely
this
not.
show has been any indication
Yeah.
over almost 4 years, it will not be funny.
So the Democrats up to now have been the party sort of no religion. They've taken the separation of church and state almost as their religion, right? But is it time to pivot and instead of being the party of no religion, the party of all religions?
Sure, I like that.
Not because you can. It's just not. They're not going to say you have to pick any one, and that's what the Constitution bars for. Directing you to. Practice any one religion. But if they are inclusive of all of them, if more people are like Pete Buttigieg, who,
Right. That's what I say. He's been bringing that up.
right, so he's, but whatever people are, whether they're just, spiritual in nature or religious of whatever kind of organized religion, but that they include it in who they are and in their speeches and in their just who they are as sort of
Because if
branding.
Tulsi Gabbard talked about being Hindu, that wouldn't be doing her any favors, most likely, even amongst Democrats, don't you think?
I don't know that it'll look. I don't think it'll hurt her any more than if she said she was Catholic. I think that it would kind of be received the same way. But that my non-joke answer to that is I wonder how much of an issue is it for the farthest left contingent of the party to not really speak on religion, not to exclude religion, but you just kind of, you just sort of talk about it. You just try to be separate from it. You don't really hear much about it. I mean, even people who candidates and elected officials who do go to church don't really talk about it as much.
Did you hear about Cokie Roberts when she died? I was hearing all of this. I've always loved her, but I did not realize what a hardcore Catholic she was, and all of the
I don't
coverage
think I realized that either.
of all the coverage of Cokie Roberts' death, and they talked about, but she was such a staunch feminist, and she did think that, the Catholic Church definitely needs to allow women to be priests, and they need to not be celibate anymore, and things like that. But she was a strong Catholic, which I thought that was it. Just
there's some
I hate
other
that
things
meant,
that they should stop doing.
But in
too.
line of with what Chelsea's saying, it made me love her even more, knowing that she was this complicated person who, so
because I think the sort of the godless brand, I don't think that works, because then you allow anybody to claim it, like Trump. Oh, I'm the God-fearing one here. Like, who's
Well, I think part of
people are buying that, but
part of the Republican side, and it's been going on, since before Reagan, is to attract a Christianity, and so everyone else. I think it kind of makes the pie a lot harder for everyone else. Just all of the above or whatever goes into the Democratic column. I think it kind of dilutes.
Christianity has been falling, but
No, it has been.
spirituality has been going up. So
no, I agree with you, but I think that's why they haven't, and because the Republicans are taking a very specific brand of Christianity as well, that they have kind of incorporated as their own, going back from the 70s, and what led to Ronald Reagan is from that.
Ryan in the booth, can you see if you can find President Trump being asked the question of some of his favorite Bible passages?
I've never seen that.
This is somewhat recent.
Is this the one, 2 Corinthians?
Well,
One
no,
of
it's not
those?
even that. No. It's and just in case we don't find it, it's essentially there's so many great passages.
We've been talking about how it's your favorite book, and you said, I think last night in Iowa, some people are surprised that you say that. I'm wondering what one or two of your most favorite Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal. So I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite.
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that you like.
I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or New Testament?
Probably equal. I think it's just an incredible. The whole Bible is an incredible. I joke. Very much so. They always hold up the Art of the Deal. I say my second favorite book of all time.
You can stop it right there.
Ryan did great fight. That was so fast pulling that up.
Thank you, Ryan.
I've got to toot my own horn. Actually, Jeff is sitting next to Ryan.
You got it so fast. Jeff Graham got it.
No, actually, if there's one person who's faster than me, it probably is Ryan.
It's a joke.
That was impressive.
We love Ryan. It was
Well
just
done.
a joke.
That was impressive.
Jeff was actually, he just happened to be watching it when you asked for it.
He just likes that.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a perfect example because, like, you know, that's like if you're asked about a movie that you're like kind of embarrassed that you haven't ever seen, you'd be like, oh yeah, Taxi Driver, it's great. Oh my god, I love that thing that he does. And yeah, so
By the way, you should see my movie. It's the second best movie.
yeah,
to
the Art of
mine.
the Deal, the movie, and of course the winter show, Art of the Deal on Ice. There's a lot of.
I've
branding.
never seen that clip. That was amazing.
That's
forgot about it. Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
See, so we can't.
I can pick a favorite clip. That was really easy for me to come up with that. And I haven't been to Sunday school in more than 25 years, but I could fake my way through like one Bible verse. You know, I mean. How many times has he seen somebody? You just see footage.
John 3:16.
Yeah. Exactly. He should have just said John 3:16. What's your favorite?
He can't retain
great
details.
question from those interviewers from Bloomberg, whom I don't actually know who they are, but that is probably construed by some people as a gotcha question, like asking Sarah Palin what her favorite newspapers are. You know, which shouldn't really be a gotcha question. If you're going to say the Bible's your favorite book, and it's not true, not saying that it's not true, but if it isn't. Have your quick answer of, oh yeah, this is the one that really means a lot to me. Right. Instead of like, well, it's really personal. No, I'm not going to say that.
Going
really
back, but like back to what we were talking about, I agree, Chelsea. If there were candidates that did talk about more, spirituality or whatever form of religion that they choose to, I personally would like that a lot. But I don't know if the Democratic Party as a whole, if that would work in their favor.
Well, that's why I like Mayor Pete bringing that up and saying that the Republicans don't have. The lock on Christianity, but he's focused on that more as opposed to
and
the
Mayor
broader.
Pete bringing it up is, I think it's the perfect example because you're going to have a very strong, very ultra religious segment that feels that Mayor Pete just day to day is a sinner.
What did he say?
So just in general, he's just talked about his own personal
Christianity
faith.
and that and his faith and that essentially Mike Pence and Republicans and everything don't have a lock on the Christian faith as being Democrats are religious as well in their own way so that's basically what he's been bringing up and that there's a counter argument to Republicans having a lock on that, but they've had a lock on the form of Christianity and the evangelicals and things like that are very specific as opposed to what you're saying, which I agree with you. I would love for them to bring that up more, and it shouldn't be a lock on
because
the
now
Republican side.
Because the divide is so stark that now
Right.
if Republicans are the party of religion, then Democrats are the party of anti-religion, right? So I don't think that's a good idea to allow that sort of look to stick.
Right, and I think that it needs to be someone who it's actually part of their life. You just saw a clip of someone who's pretending to be religious when they're not. I'm of course talking about the interviewers from Bloomberg. They were clearly pretending to be religious. But so I think and Mayor Pete's a good example. I don't. Anybody that you haven't really heard talk about their faith shouldn't just start talking about it, and so that's maybe not even this cycle. But I think if it is important to someone, don't be afraid to talk about it because I think that will really help. We should definitely move along because we have a couple other things, a couple of Chelsea favorites. But as we were talking about the General Assembly, we wanted to talk about climate change. And I don't know if it's Ryan or Jeff in the booth, but there was something that I emailed to the show's account, and it was a little graphic representation.
Working on it. I'll pull it up in just a minute.
Of President Trump walked past Greta Thunberg or Gunberg. I always think of Grunberg, but that's an actor, Greg Grunberg.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're related. And I think there's a GIF version of it, but then there's also just a graphic. Yeah, I think it's the one, and it doesn't matter if it's got the meme words under it. Yeah, that's that top one right there. That'll be it. You can just zoom in on that. So President Trump walked by her, and I don't think he's not like speaking publicly. I think he's just talking to somebody. But this was kind of this image caught on online a lot yesterday because she's just glaring at him as and of course if you're looking at the image that's on the screen right now, they've compared it to 11 from Stranger Things. So different superpowers. So I think that really spoke a lot to what that moment was, and I used it as a joke, but I feel like it's great that she's so passionate about this. I'm glad that she's gotten a platform for it. I do feel bad for her because by being out in front of this and speaking on the floor of the General Assembly, you didn't have to dig around too far on Twitter to just see some of the terrible things people were saying about her. There was a guest on Fox News who called her mentally ill, and then if so there's a lot, and I just was like, oh, she's 16. Does she need all that? Does she need all that backlash? So I don't know. I feel like it's kind of invited something.
Wait, but in the joke, you made it sound like you thought she was like a paid.
Oh, look, who did she buy herself a solar-powered boat to take here, or do you think somebody paid for that? Do you think that there's like an organization that paid for that solar-powered boat, or do you think that her parents wrote a check?
Okay, I don't know, but just
that's
if
why
somebody
I
gets
feel
financial support for anything that they do doesn't mean that they don't actually believe it.
Oh, I think she believes it. I just think that she's being propped up as the
for somebody
forefront
who is 16 years old and is that eloquent and has that grasp of the severity of the situation and is able to make a speech in such the gravity of who she was speaking in front of. You can't tell me that she didn't already think about the negative side to what could happen. She know a 16-year-old knows better than anybody what social media backlash is going to come at them in a forum like that. That's
but
no
does she
surprise
just
to
think
her.
most people agree with her and maybe wasn't prepared for it?
I don't think she cares.
I'm only asking a question.
Think she felt,
if she doesn't care, that's great.
I think she felt that what she had to say was important enough that any negative backlash that came from it, that it's not important. She just had to say that. I feel like she had agency, and what the passion that came out of that speech, she had self-agency. Whoever was giving her money to go there, or whatever organizations might be involved with her making that appearance, then that very well may be, but I believe she had self-agency. She wanted to be there, and I'm
glad you used the term agency because I hear she signed with CAA. So
I hope that she did. I hope that she did.
Yeah. And by the way, of course, doing it in obviously everyone in Europe learns how to speak English, but doing it in a language that's not her own is also it's just a reminder of how maybe some of us were at 16, like, oh yeah, that's.
It's only impressive to Americans because we're the only ones that don't speak any other language.
Yeah.
Everybody else.
I will have you know that I speak Vulcan and Klingon. Thank you very much. Scott, before we moved on, I wanted to give you a chance to weigh in on this.
No, I can kind of see both sides of what you're saying of being that she's 16 and not that manipulated, but like what is her parents' background, and are her parents very...
I'm just afraid she's being taken advantage of for a cause that she believes in. I think she believes in it.
Right, and that's where I can see that as a 16-year-old where you get concerned, like who, like you said, who's fronting all this, who's making sure, kind of propping her up on that. So I do understand that because as a minor and everything, that is concerning. But like you were saying, it's very true. The fact that she could go up and speak in front of such a serious, topic in a group setting like that at 16 also is very impressive
and
too.
Use the term, how dare you all, basically.
To do that, admonish.
Yeah, by the way, there were like a few countries that were like, what do you mean all? Like some of us are on your side. What are you doing? Like
that is very impressive, though. I mean, that part of it.
Justin Trudeau was scrubbing his face, trying to make it look a little whiter, and saying, like, "What do you mean, me? Who's more a friend of the climate change movement?"
The part that resonates with me over and over was when she's saying, "And then all you guys talk about is your money and fairy tale of eternal economic growth or prosperity."
Well, she's from Sweden. She doesn't understand that. She's not American. She doesn't understand the kind of. It's a joke. Calm down.
But but I'm saying like
jokes aren't funny though.
I'm imagining myself as 16, knowing there's no way that I could. I would.
No,
that's what's mind blowing to me. The fact that she was able to do that at 16, where I couldn't.
I would have jumped at the opportunity to give that speech, but my speech would have just been like, yeah, right, guys. So, I'd be
I know people in their 30s who don't want to speak into a room of like an improv class.
Yeah.
So doing that, it's very impressive. And I just, I don't know. I hope that she's not being taken advantage of. But I do want to move on to something that's very important.
What makes you think that she is?
Because she's 16 and
I do agree with that.
somebody's money. There's money behind this. I want to know who it is. What's their goal? Because
of all the things that there's money behind, this is the one that you question.
Yeah,
this is the one that's in the news yesterday.
I support it, but it does concern me when you have a child, like a minor, and I'm like, who's behind that? Not saying, because I do agree with it, but using this child as like Christian's saying, as a prophet.
Before we move on, how would you feel if this was a 16-year-old who was going around talking about that he or she didn't believe in climate change? That it's like, well, look at all these studies that say that it's not happening. So, if you're agreeing with the message, are you more inclined to feel like it's okay? Would you feel that somebody's being manipulated?
I'm
if they had
saying,
a different
great,
message?
let's find out who the money forces are behind her, but let's not just ask that about her. Let's ask that about...
She's just the thing in the news right now.
Every day, my question is, what's the money behind this?
Right, absolutely.
So,
100%.
I encourage that question to be more common for me.
I feel like we get it every week on this show.
But I would be curious to know about her parents and all that too, and their background, or maybe how they brought her up and what they do as
if there's any kind of impropriety anywhere, Glenn Beck will have it on his big chalkboard on his internet.
What
show
about
tomorrow.
the Parkland activists somebody's funding their tours and speeches?
I think somebody.
And things like
somebody must be paying for that. I'm not saying rightly or wrongly.
And
I'm just saying that money has to come from somewhere.
I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying these kids, if they didn't want to do it, they wouldn't be doing it.
I would hope that, but look, if you want to take it to show business, you think that every show.
I think it's condescending to kids today to assume that they're being forced.
Do you think
this
everybody
kind of
on Nickelodeon wants to be an actor? Like every kid on one of those shows? Do you think that there's any that just like hate it so much, but their parents made them do it? And I'm not saying that's the case.
I think that's a severely separate issue, since that's not. I think in seeing how fired up teenagers are, in the past 3 years, I totally believe her sincerity. That's all I'm saying.
And that's what I said to you too. I believe that too, for her to do it. But my own concern is the fact that she's younger, and that who's taking advantage of that.
Gem Mint 1952 Mantle in the chat just chimes in. Trump is the best. Michael Ryan, Trump rules. So I just want to give everybody a voice. That's
also
there in the
Slayer.
Yes, obviously Seasons in the Abyss, but I do want to move on because Chelsea brought to my attention a story that I didn't know anything about, and you probably all expected that we were going to talk about pine nuts today. Well, we are. U.S. drone strike killed 30 pine nut farm workers in Afghanistan. I think that's different than farmers, but pine nut farm workers. Now, drone strike is certainly not something that you can look at as a problem in this administration. I think that...
Wait, what?
Are you trying to say that Obama didn't use drones? So I'm just saying it's a continuing problem.
Got it.
That's where I'm starting from.
Agreed.
Yeah, all right. So, I didn't mean that, other people were just flying around and shooting.
I couldn't tell when the jokes start and when they end. So I always need clarification.
If you just assume they never start, then you're probably going to be in the right place.
Christian needs to learn a little bit of that Trump subtlety.
It's a very personal issue. So, Chelsea, you brought us this story. Yeah. I wanted you to talk a little about it.
Yeah, thank you. And I just think that these are the kinds of stories that kind of get fall through the cracks or hidden behind the curtain because we're all paying attention to whatever silly thing Trump has done or serious thing that he has done. And who wore what
at the Emmys. These are important things this week.
And then if we really want to pretend to care about our security and the rest of the world. I mean, we have spent billions and trillions of dollars in Afghanistan. Probably doesn't help that we're, accidentally, even if that's accidentally, killing 30 farm workers, 30 civilians. And people are, I don't know if people just don't know, or if they were to know, they would say 30 people, whatever. But I think that it is important for at least somebody to be talking about it and saying, hey, we need to knock this off. I know Obama did it too. I don't care. But this is what's happening now. And I feel that we need to stop. There has to be a way to be more careful.
I would also like to know, what's the success rate with drone strikes? How many times do you get the intended target? There's not real collateral damage, and how many times is it a bunch of pine nut farmers? Because if it's 50-50, it's like, all right, well, that's not right. Yeah. If it's like 1 out of 100, it's like, all right, we really need to be better. But if it's the other way around, where it's 99 out of 100, it's like, well, then maybe you need to come up with another way to do this.
This would have been one of those things where those daily press briefings that Trump no longer allows his administration to do
they're wasting time.
Would be necessary. I think that, the least that we can do is announce this to the country that this is what we have done. And I don't know, take a moment of freaking silence and just, we are sorry. This was done with the best intelligence that we had. It's whatever. But for us to completely ignore it and then be shocked when people hate us and look to do us harm, it just boggles my mind, and it just breaks my heart that this. I don't know how far down I had to scroll to find this.
Right, because I was going to say I didn't hear about it.
I didn't either.
Your link was from Reuters, and
did we even say what it is we're talking about?
A U.S. drone strike intended to hit an Islamic State hideout in Afghanistan killed at least 30 civilians resting after a day's labor in the fields, officials said on Thursday. And that's a quote from the article.
So that's what we were talking about here. But that is not
this happened September 19th, 2019.
So that's not This Week in Corruption, which is another segment, which is also Chelsea doing her homework.
Yes.
A couple extra stars in the book today.
Why, thank you.
So talk a little bit about, this involves Mike Pence.
Yeah, and I was pleased to find that there is a group of Republicans who call themselves Republicans for the Rule of Law that are calling out Mike Pence for saying his whole who cares about the president supposedly having people stay at his resorts, and just the whole emoluments thing that seems to be getting a shrug from the GOP. There's actually a group of Republicans who care about corruption. So I wanted to say woohoo for those Republicans in the Republicans for the Rule of Law, and that's it for our
But Republicans for the Rule of Law is directed by Bill Kristol, formerly of the Weekly Standard. So it's a fairly well-known figure. He worked for, I think, Dan Quayle. Mm-hmm. But in terms of someone who's been out there for decades, he doesn't have a magazine anymore because they were never Trumpers, but he's still out there. So I think
you've mentioned him a few times.
Yeah,
that's the only reason I've.
He's fairly. He's fairly well known. Yeah. As well known as a talking head can be.
Exactly.
Political junkies know who guys like him are, because he would be on the ABC Sunday show a lot. This Week.
Yeah.
So that's probably where a lot of people would see him. But yeah, so I think it's. So what does that takeaway tell you, that the fact that there's a group called Republicans for the Rule of Law?
I just want this to be, or for us to promote that this is not just a one-sided, one party only cares about anti-corruption, and even sometimes there are some people within the Democratic Party who don't care about anti-corruption, which is a big problem. But there are some people who are Republicans, who are conservatives, who care about it and who are calling out this administration. I just wanted to say thank you to those allies.
Look, it's a problem when you see that a number of Republican officials are having Christmas parties and things at Trump properties in D.C. But then it's much bigger, and that's where the Mike Pence comes into it. where he had to stay. Where was it, in Scotland?
3 hours.
He was
away.
3 hours away, so that he could stay at a
in Ireland. But then the Air Force? Who was it that was actually having to layover essentially in Scotland at his golf club resort? Right. So there was two things there. It's that with the military using it, and then him using that for his stay in Ireland.
Right. I think that it's just a little bit. It's far more blatant when it's that. Obviously, both of those things are wrong. Using a preferred hotel in D.C. doesn't seem quite as egregious as that, which is just insane. So it's another story that I think is not getting a lot of attention.
Right, because that's the thing. There's so much corruption going on with this administration, and that's, like we said, it's like, how's this Ukraine thing risen to the top when there's been so many other things that have happened over the past couple years that we could go on and on about what he could be impeached for.
So we do have to wrap up, but Chelsea, do you think you'll have trouble coming up with next week's segment of This Week in Corruption, or are you confident that you'll be able to find something out there?
The most confident I have been in a very long time.
Are you as confident in that as Donald Trump is confident how much he loves the Bible? You can think about that
Yeah.
till next week.
Well,
I have a
It's too
pitch.
personal a question, Christian.
I know, right?
I have a pitch related. On March 6, 2019, Trump signed an executive order revoking the requirement that U.S. intelligence office officials publicly report the number of civilians killed in counterterrorism drone attacks. So,
Well, there you go.
interesting and related.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Well,
that.
well, and I would say really quick to that we as would never admit our failures to anyone in the world, and especially this administration will be the last ones to do that, which is horrible.
No person,
Which is
no country
horrible.
of integrity can exist
know.
without ever acknowledging
Exactly.
their flaws or their mistakes.
But that's what I'm saying. That's a big problem that we've had as Americans in general, and that's across the board. But this administration in particular will never
we have
admit.
to encourage a culture where people
Yeah.
say,
100%.
call out their own mistakes, take responsibility, and that people are forgiven.
Right. And you grow from it, and you learn from it,
hopefully,
and you move to the
people
next.
stop doing it, and that we
Right. You learn
actually-
from it.
Who'd have thought a
Mm-hmm.
reality star elected into public office would be really bad at calling out his own public flaws, personal flaws?
Yeah.
And that's one to
Crazy
grow
talk.
on. But we are out of time. Thank you to everyone in the chat. And yes, that means everyone in the chat. We appreciate everybody there. And if you're watching the archive version, let us know what you thought. You can find us next Tuesday at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. Until then, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Chelsea, where do people find you?
At Chelsea Galicia.
Tamra
At HeyTamra _ on Twitter.
and Scott.
And you can find me on Twitter at sman80. That's sman80.
Did you thank Mitch McConnell for not blocking the whistleblower testimony?
will.
I
Thanks, Mitch.
I still call him a hypocrite because
Okay,
of his
that's fine. No, I
stupid
just wanted to-
statements that he put out there.
Okay, that's fair. All right, thanks
Still
again,
bad.
everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.